In this video, we are going to discuss policy set theoretically. That what is policy set? Basically, policy set, I'm talking about both network access and device administration set altogether. Now you are thinking that how both network access and device administration set. If I go to ISE and I click here, so this is policy set. You see, when you click policy set, so I'm talking about this policy set. But there is another policy set which is for administration set, means device administration. When we do a device administration, you will understand what is device administration. And one is network access. The one which I open right now is a network access. So when my network devices try to authenticate and authorize, so they will hit this policy. But there is another same policy set. If I go to work center and I need to go to device administration, and here is device admin policy set. Look at now, I'm here, but it's not the same place. Here I am in work center and then device admin policy set. There is only one default for TechX policy. But if I go to policy set here, so there I created one for last lab, if you remember, for .1x. So this is .1x policy and default policy, but the name are same, policy set. And if I go to work center and device admin policy set, so again the same structure, the same view, the same thing, but these two are working separately. This one is working for device administration, normally TechX. I'm talking about normally, because you can use Radius also for device administration, but most of the time we are using TechX for device administration. So this is device admin policy set, and this is network access policy set. So now you get the difference between policy set. Now what this policy set do? Basically, this policy set enable you to logically group authentication and authorization policy within a same set. They provide you a same set for authentication and authorization on the same place under one umbrella. You know, if you click here, policy set, so when you click here, you see there is authentication and authorization. Very good. On one place you can configure your authentication policy and you can configure your authorization policy. You don't need to go separate places. If you check all ISE, so you need to go separate places. For authentication separately, and for authorization you need to click separately. Now in new ISE they bring them in a one place, and that place is called policy set, and that's what I'm talking about. So it's a logical container which keep authentication and authorization in the same place. And you can have several policy set based on area, such as policy set based on location, access type, and similar parameter. You can create as many you want policy set. This is my policy set. If I click on policy set, so I created one which is disabled. Let me enable it. So I can create from this point. I will show you a bit later, but just talking about, you can create from here. Look at this, the policy name, this the description, this the condition, and this the allowed protocol, and how many hits came on this policy. Like this one get 21 hits, and these are some action like insert new row above, below, duplicate, either duplicate above, below, either you want to delete this one. So you can create as many you want, and you can put different policy set on different conditions. Now when you install ISE, there is always one policy set defined, and it's true. There is a default one. Can I delete this one? No, there is no delete. If I click here, there is delete, because this one I created, and this one is the default one. If I click here, I cannot disable it. This one is enable, disable and monitor. We will talk about this one a bit later. But here I cannot do anything. Neither I can disable it. This is the default policy. Default policy set is the description. And these are the allowed protocol. I can change this one, yeah. But I cannot delete this policy. NZ new row above. But you cannot put below either. You cannot delete this one. And if I go to the administration one, policy set, device admin policy set. So there is also by default one. And this is the default one. I cannot do anything. Can I delete? No. NZ new row above. And I can create from here a new from scratch. Either I can create from here, click, it will create. Let me reset. So there is a default policy. By default, there is one default policy. Either in device administration policy set, either network access policy set. By default, you will find one policy. And that's what I mentioned here. So this is predefined default authentication and authorization and exception policy rule. So these default policy keep, if I click here this arrow, so there is authentication by default and there is authorization by default. Look at now, by default there are many, and there is authorization policy local exception and global exception by default. And if I go back to work center and check device admin policy set, so it's the same thing. There is one authentication policy by default with the name default, and there is one authorization policy with the name default deny all commands. So you can create policy set. You can configure these rules with condition and result. Because when you try to create a policy, either from here, so there is a condition and there is a result. So these are condition, and if I go to device admin set, okay, and if I click here, so in condition, authentication policy, and also here authorization policy. So identity source, I can choose the identity source and authentication policy level, and network permission and authorization policy level. So when I try to configure authentication policy, so I need to choose identity store like internal endpoint, internal user, guest user. These are the different thing in authentication. And authorization, because this is a device administration, so this shell profile is mentioned. But if I go to network one, so there will be different thing. And if I go to authorization, so you see there is a result which we were talking about, and profile. And this what I mentioned here in this theory. You can define one or more condition. It's up to you how many condition you want to set and attributes from dictionary, different vendors. So it's up to you. We will see a bit later. You can put as many condition. When you click here, so these are the condition. You can put more than one condition as well. And you can put one condition as well. It's up to you how you want to authenticate, authorize someone or device or user. Now coming to the structure of this policy set configuration. So let me go to policy set again, this policy set overall. First thing first, there is a status. This the status. You'll see this means test status, this one. And policy set, the first thing is here, this plus. It means if you want to create a new policy, you just need to click here and it will create a policy. And if you don't need, you can click here and delete again. So from this plus you can create a new policy. But keep in mind, if you haven't created, if only the default one is available. Let me go to that one, because there is I haven't created. You need the default one available. You can create the first policy from this plus as well. Look at now, it's create. But second time this plus will work as a condition. You get my point? So when there is a default policy and you haven't created any policy at all, then this plus will create the first policy, and you can use this plus anytime to create new policy. So you have two options. Ever first time, let me delete this one. If it is a first time, okay, there will be plus. Let me go back and check again. Yeah, this plus is available now because this is my first time. So first time you can use this plus to create a new policy, but only first time. If the policy is created once, no. Now if you click, it will put condition for this policy. And even not at all, you cannot create second time to use this plus. This the simple words I can say. That first time you can use this plus to create the first policy, and anytime you can use this plus to create policy set. Click as many you want, you can create a policy. So this thing is clear. The first thing is mentioned below, but I explain you here. This one, you can still click the checkbox to add a new policy. This one, either this one, but only once no policy has been created beside the default policy, then you can use this plus as well. So this thing is clear to you, that why we are using this plus. Then there is a status. Let's go to status, which I was talking about. Here is. So in status you will find three things. Enable this policy condition is active. Disable this policy is inactive. And monitor only this policy condition will not be evaluated, just for monitoring purpose. Where is that one? Under the status. So if I click here, you see under this checkbox, it says enable, disable and monitor. You want to enable this policy? Yes, it's green. You want to disable this policy will not be hit. This policy set, sorry. And you can click monitor, just monitor for monitoring purpose. So this point is clear to you. Under status, there are three things: enable, disable or monitor. You want to enable this policy set, you want to disable, and this want to monitor only. So this point is clear to you. Next is policy set name. Next is this policy set name. Here you need to put the policy set name. Suppose I say policy set 1. This is the name. Whatever a descriptive name is good one. And then here is a description. This policy is for .1x, suppose. Just saying. And this policy is for MAB. I'm just typing any description, it's up to you. So description is clear. Then policy set has condition. Which condition you want to put? You need to click this plus icons to put the condition. Click on this one, so it will open a new window. Now I will explain you this window a bit later, but here you can put condition, and it is must, and it's telling you as well, like this one. Suppose I put the device type has equal all device type and use. So I say this is my condition. If the device type is equal to all device type, so this is my condition. You need to put a condition here as well. Maybe you want to put some other condition here. Maybe you say device model and you need to type device model. Let me put network access authentication method. Suppose you say that it should be MSCHAP2. So this is your condition. This policy will be hit if this rule is used. If the condition is this one. And by the way, these rules I'll check from top to bottom like a firewall policies, like a access control list. But right now this is the monitoring. You need to enable, like these are enabled now. So condition is clear to you. Now you need to put a condition. When you click the plus icon, So it will open a new condition studio, which it is open. I will explain you this condition studios, this one, condition studios, and you need to put the condition here, and I put this condition. Now next thing is description. I already put a description, you whatever you like. Then the next thing in policy set is allowed protocol or server sequences. This one. Allowed, which protocol you want to allow. By default there is default device admin and default network access protocol. You can choose their default one, default network access suppose. By the way, this default network access is already created here. If you go to result, let me discard this one, and this is the default network access protocol. I believe every protocol is allowed, like a host lookup for MEB authentication. PAP is allowed, password authentication protocol. CHAP is allowed, challenge handshake authentication protocol. Challenge handshake version 1, version 2 is allowed. EAP, extensible authentication protocol, message digest 5 is allowed. EAP TLS, EAP through TLS is also allowed. And these all are EAP protocol. LEAP, PEAP. These are different type of EAP, extensible authentication protocol. Through TLS, TLS is just like a SSL, you know, a certificate. And these almost all the protocol are allowed. The one which is you are not using, you can uncheck them and you can create your own as well. So if I go to authentication, and here I can create my own as well. Suppose I say my allowed protocol. You can do it. Suppose you say that uncheck, I just want to allow this one, host lookup, and suppose you want to uncheck this one, and allow this one, and suppose this one. Just showing you that you just allow MEB authentication protocol and click submit. So when you go back to your policy set, here it will be showing, here is my allowed protocol. So you put a specific restriction that only if the protocol is this one, then use this set. You get what I'm saying? Now it's here. But by the way, you don't need to go there, result and create and then call them here. You can click this plus icon and here is create new allowed protocol, either create new radius sequence. Click here and give them any name. My allowed protocol 2. And these are the same thing. Look at now. That's the same almost, and save. It will be here. My allowed protocol 2. You don't need to go there as well. On the fly you can create if you click this plus icon. And you can choose the allowed protocol which you want to test this policy set. So allowed protocol and server sequence is clear to you. Now condition. Condition, I told you there are many condition you can put. After this there is hits. How many hits came on this policy set? Like this one, this 24. When you click on this, so you say refresh frequency every 15 minutes and you can reset as well. Suppose this is 24 and I want to reset, I want to check something. So you can say reset, so it will be reset to 0. First let me reset the policy because I had done changes and now I can reset. And it will be reset to 0 if I click again and reset. It need to be reset. So it will be reset, and let me refresh. It has to be reset right now. I don't know, for some reason it's showing. After a while it will show you 0. So these are the hits which came on this policy. After that there is action, this icon. So you can insert new row above, is create a new row like a same here. And when you click insert new row below, so you can put below. And when you click here, you can duplicate the same thing. Duplicate above, look at the same thing. It's duplicate if you need duplicate, and duplicate below, so it will duplicate below similar thing. It's just right, copy, 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 and this one, and delete. If you want to delete this policy, you can click here to delete using this one. And let me delete this one. And after the action, there is view, because this is a policy set. Within a policy set, we just talk about, there is authentication and authorization. So when you click here, sorry, let me reset. First you need to save, then you can click. And when you click here, you see now it's showing us inside this policy set there is authentication policy, there is authorization policy, and there is authorization local exception and global exception policy. So let me go to policy set. Now it's 0. Okay, it's there now, done it. So its head says 0 now. So this arrow is used to see inside. Now if you want to check inside authentication, you need to click this arrow again to check the rule inside this authentication policy. If you want to see authorization policy, you need to check this arrow to see inside. So this is clear, and action I already told you. You can duplicate above, you can duplicate below, you can delete, and you can insert new row above, and you can insert new row below. In action, this the action, sorry. When you go back, we were talking about this one, the action. Okay, done. And view. So view is this one. If you want to view the policy, authentication and authorization policy inside this policy set, because policy set is a container of authentication and authorization policy. So this was policy set. So in short, policy set is a hierarchical container that used to logically group authentication and authorization policy. That's what I say. It means policy set has different collection of authentication and authorization rule which we can apply for different use cases. And keep in mind the matches criteria are evaluated top to bottom. When the first match policy set being selected, the policy set tab under policy provider interface. So it means if some hits came and it's the condition met this one, the condition this one, then it will use inside this policy set authentication, and then it will use this policy set authorization rule, because it will check from top to bottom first of all policy set, and with this policy set is hit, then it will go inside and then it will check the authentication and authorization. So this is the way how it is work. So from top to bottom it will work. And there is authentication policy, there is authorization policy in the same box. How we can create? So from this plus, and first time from this plus. And how to duplicate and how to create a new. So you need to click on this gear icon. So insert new row below, up, and duplicate and delete you can do to use this one. Allow protocol on the fly. So you can click on this plus to create, and also you can create there and you can call them here. I show you that one as well. And if you want to view the authentication authorization, so you need to click on this arrow to see inside this policy set authentication and authorization. So when you click on that arrow, it will show you authentication and authorization. Again, you need to click on this arrow. So when you click on this arrow, it will show you the rule inside authentication and the rule inside authorization.